We got Tirzu back in the building. Our Mongooses OP. Okay. The only type of mongoose I know is a bike. All right. I fell off, lost half of my face one time on a mongoose. Survived to tell the story, man. Hold on, which one's the mongoose? Because that was a monkey.
Cats and dogs are both some of the most overpowered builds in the entire game. But in order to reach that level of success, their player bases needed to try out a ton of different strategies. Both caniforms and feliforms have a powerful solitary tank buster on their roster. They both have mid-sized scavengers on their roster. And perhaps most interestingly, both developed slender generalist builds with an emphasis on digging and brash intimidation. On the caniform side, we have the mustelids, builds like weasels, ferrets, and honey badgers. And on the feliform side, we have the mongoose. Despite being a close relative of cats and sharing a lot of abilities with them, they also have a lot of unique traits that set them apart from every other predator build in
mob mentality? They be jumping?
in the game. So are they actually better than their more traditional feline counterparts?
Dreaded was good.
Or are their special abilities just gimmicky jank? Today we'll discuss. We'll begin, as always, with a look at the Mongoose's base stats.
Bro, look at the intelligence on that thing. And what's the last one? That last thing, HP? No, the heart is HP, right?
Starting off with the Mongoose's intelligence. Mongooses have an intelligence similar to that of a rat, which is to say they're quite clever. Mongooses are generalists and
yo, this mongoose a
similar to that
freak.
of a rat, which is to say they're quite clever.
That mongoose is a freak tying that thing up like that.
Mongooses are generalists and need to be able to think on their feet
White
in
Day
a variety
Corey?
of situations in order to succeed. But their best usage of intelligence
We'll
is
do that
in
next.
coordinated team tactics. Team tactics are a rarity in the feliform faction of the mammal player base. But among the small pool of social feliforms, you'd be hard-pressed to find a more tactical bunch. The most obvious example is the meerkat, which is a type of mongoose that specializes specifically in being extra well adapted to work together. But most mongooses are, at the very least, gregarious, and because mongooses are much more vulnerable than builds like the lion or wolf, they need to work together both in order to succeed in hunting and to watch each other's backs and protect each other. Their power stat is pretty mid for a carnivorous mammal, to be honest. Unlike most members of the feliform faction, mongooses do not have retractable claws. They use their claws primarily for digging, which worked quite well, but of course inevitably dulls their claws and makes them less useful for dealing damage. As a result, mongooses have to rely solely on their bite force to inflict damage, which is unfortunately nothing special.
Buddy is getting cooked.
Still, it's enough to get the job done against low HP targets, which is really all you need as a mid-sized social predator. It just means that they can't really threaten an attacking player, and need to cede territory whenever pressured. Now, due to the mongoose's slender shape, you might assume that similar to honey badgers, stoats, and ferrets, the mongoose sports thick, loose skin that allows it to take reduced damage and avoid critical hits. Unfortunately, mongooses do not have this perk.
Oh, you're
and
done.
need to play a much less reckless game than honey badgers in the face of danger.
But because our honey badgers like OP, we did it. We watched the video on honey badgers. Them things right there. Listen, you get in a 1v1 with that, I'm rage quitting. Get me out the game.
This lack of thick, loose skin also makes them less resistant to cold damage, forcing them to stick to servers where ice damage isn't a threat. One unique defensive trait they do have, however, is total resistance to venom. Their blood neutralizes most toxins, rendering them almost completely harmless towards the mongoose. This is the main reason their matchup against snakes and scorpions is so oppressive. The mongoose's mobility stat is also fairly mid for a feliform. While certainly quite nimble and agile, its actual run speed is below average for a mammal. Even discounting the cheetah as an outlier, most cats have a movement speed that is well above average, and are excellent climbers. The mongoose can still move much quicker than any reptile it might encounter, but compared to mammalian predators it might face, it is a bit slow. Its slender body and shorter legs do not offer any benefits for speed. Instead, this shape allows mongooses to remain low to the ground, taking advantage of cover more easily and also enabling it to access the tight spaces and burrows that its main threats cannot follow them into. Other than their short stature, mongooses don't really have any major stealth-based abilities that they use, so their stealth stat is only average as well. Perception-wise, the Mongoose is truly one of the most unique builds in the game. If you watched my last video, you'll remember that I spoke at length how important the house cat's snake-like vertical slit pupil is for ensuring high accuracy on its attacks, which enables the cat to parry and counterattack incredibly effectively.
Yo, cats are OP,
don't
bro.
have vertical slit.
I ain't gonna lie, cats might be better than dogs. All right, if I was to get a pet, we definitely going cat. Listen, I just can't rock with the dogs, bro. All right, my girlfriend dog sit one time, came back and there was doo-doo on the wall. Okay, the owners were about to get a box of Panda Express on their return. I swear.
Pupils, most predators will at least have circular pupils that will allow for optimal forward binocular vision. Mongooses have horizontal pupils. Horizontal pupils do not enhance depth perception and attack accuracy. Instead, the purpose of a horizontal pupil is to broaden the player's field of view, making it easier to detect incoming attacks from the side or from behind. In addition to this unconventional eye structure, mongooses also have an excellent sense of smell and hearing. So how well do these stats and abilities synergize with each other? Honestly, it's a pretty mixed bag.
That snake.
Because the mongoose's stats are generally a bit on the low side, they're not able to outrun or repel attackers. Instead, they have to rely on their digging ability for safety. This greatly limits the potential territory they can explore, as if they get too far from their burrows, it's unlikely they'd be able to escape an ambush. It also means that any player with the ability to pursue them into their burrow completely negates their main line of defense.
Oh, they're done.
The mongoose.
Yo, who's recording these videos? I have never, bro, listen. Who set up a camera inside the freaking mongoose lair to see the Komodo dragon crawl in there and eat it alive? And sat there and watched it? This world is getting even more insane.
His eyesight is truly a confounding inclusion in an otherwise fairly standard Mesopredator game plan. Now, credit where it's due, the horizontal pupils do offer some extra benefits that synergize well with the Mongoose's game plan. They offer a slight perception bonus in bright sunlight conditions compared to vertical or round pupils. Because mongooses are diurnal, in direct sunlight, the tan dirt of the African savanna could impede their vision if they didn't have a way to mitigate it. But ultimately, plenty of savanna builds make do without this, so I have to assume the real purpose of this ability is the expanded field of view, which primarily aids in avoiding ambushes. This reflects a higher than normal vulnerability to attacks from predators, which I consider the mark of a less than excellent build if I were to stop things here. But I do think this does have one more important synergy for the mongoose's playstyle. The expanded field of view allows the mongoose to more easily keep track of where its teammates are, improving its ability to coordinate with the movements of other mongooses. This is reflected in its exceptional unity and fluidity at which the mongoose teams function. While plenty of other builds engage in team strategies, mongooses are unique in how tight a formation they're able to hold to. This is surprisingly useful for intimidation, as when the mongoose band moves in such tight formation, they appear as just one mass, which can easily confuse and startle large predators long enough to make an escape.
Nah, that's fire.
So, how does the mongoose fare in its most important matchups? Even deciding which matchups to include was difficult given how widespread the mongoose player base is. But I'll keep things broad enough that it should be applicable to mongoose mains everywhere.
Ethan was good.
Mongooses famously have an overwhelmingly positive matchup against snakes due to their venom immunity. This is more important than it first seems. Obviously, it's good to be able to score easy kills and feed the troop, but snakes are also normally the biggest threat to burrowing builds, as they can easily slither into tight spaces and wreak havoc. Burrowing builds that don't
Hold on. We gotta
kills and feed the troop, but
I look like a soccer mom right now. Put the shades up.
Snakes are also
now. This is either AI, okay, or somebody crawled down into an insane snake pit and recorded this one. Which one are we going with, chat?
Normally the biggest threat to burrowing builds, as they can easily slither into tight spaces and wreak havoc. Burrowing builds that don't possess venom immunity, like prairie dogs, have huge difficulty dealing with snakes. So being able to turn this vulnerability into a strength plays hugely in the mongoose's favor. Against larger predators, mongooses do struggle. They're the main reason they need to remain close enough to their burrows and party members, as without them to aid in escaping attacks, they cannot defend themselves. So against big cats, dogs, hyenas, and the like, the mongoose player needs to take advantage of all of its outs, and work with its teammates to avoid disaster.
Boy's
Skilled
running for
players
his
can
life.
hold their own in this matchup, but mistakes will be punished hard. Warthogs are one of the most surprising encounters a mongoose can have. Rather than being adversarial, Warthog and mongoose
Bro, we got Timon and Pumbaa in the building. Okay.
players often form temporary alliances. The mongoose team will cleanse the warthog player of all parasite debuffs, and in return, well, the warthog won't really deliberately do anything to help out a mongoose, but simply by tolerating them in close proximity, the warthog is protecting them. Because they're extremely dangerous and normally very territorial, mongooses are much safer when warthogs are nearby, and can venture further from their burrows so long as they remain within line of sight of a warthog. Birds of prey are one of the most dangerous matchups for mongooses. Because their perception stat tends to be extremely high, they will often target you before
Lions
you
are your
spotted
favorite
them,
animal? Okay.
leaving very little time to prepare defense or escape. However, because their power stat tends to be a bit lower, often there is a bit of time between the initial strike and the actual kill, meaning that if your team can rally quick enough, they may actually be able to save you from an attack. So once again, while technically quite a difficult matchup, skilled players with reliable teammates should be able to hold their own. Drawing comparisons to similarly sized solo builds like the Weasel and Ferret, their matchup against an avian attacker is a lot more hopeless. This is essentially the story of the mongoose. Overall, it has an unimpressive set of stats and abilities, but because the abilities it does have are primarily focused on enabling team strategies, a troop of skilled mongoose mains can often be far more successful than you would expect from such an underwhelming build. Overall, I'm gonna have to give the mongoose a mid-tier rating.
Okay, B-tier is good though.
Holding it back, but imagine how overpowered a clan of mongoose players would be if it actually had any busted abilities. Like with the mongoose, when a group of individuals functions as one unified, cohesive team, it can look pretty impressive and can be a spectacle to watch. However,
You said, what's my favorite animal? Let me think. What is my favorite animal?
thing that may be even more fun to watch is when one player on a team is trying to subtly sabotage the group's efforts. I was recently on a hilarious...
Yo, elephants are pretty OP. I rock with elephant memory, okay? Their memory is elite.
game show with this exact premise. I know it's weird to think of me as a filthy try-hard human main rather than an omniscient disembodied voice, but it's true, I do exist in corporeal form. The incredibly talented team at Wendover Productions and Jet Like the Game invited me to be a part of a game show that they were making. What they told me was that a group of creators, including myself, were going to be...
Ostriches? Yo, listen. Go watch my ostrich video. I think it was like the bird tier list Tierzoo did. Listen. The most L bird ever to walk the earth, okay? Yes, worse than the dodo bird. Big for nothing. How did the ostrich get F tier? Because it's trash. Okay.
Tasked with completing a bunch of wacky challenges, and that my job was to play the snitch, the saboteur who would try and subtly mess up to prevent the group from succeeding. What they didn't tell me was that they told everyone else the exact same thing. As you can imagine, this resulted in one of the funniest, most chaotic shows in existence. And I seriously could not be more proud to have been a part of it. We truly made something awesome, and you absolutely have to check it out. It's called The Getaway, and it's streaming...
We gotta check that out. I also downloaded Brilliant the other day. I ain't gonna lie, the joint type hard, okay? We might start every stream doing a Brilliant puzzle. Y'all gonna see some raging, bro. They had this one task. You had to figure out which way the gears were gonna turn. I got cooked. I ain't gonna lie.